3:47 a.m. The boardroom light sputters and dies while a $206 billion settlement looms, ignored. The lone fluorescent tube hums its last note, and a CEO's gloved fingers curl tighter around a gold-plated pen. Ink blooms on the contract like fresh blood, each stroke a silent promise that nobody in the room will keep. The camera lingers on the paper. The slow drip of ink echoes the distant thud of a heartbeat. A headline flashes on a nearby screen. Tobacco Master Settlement Agreement, $206 billion over 25 years, ignored by executives. Silence. Then a low, ominous pulse, the click of a keyboard. A phone rings, unanswered. The scene jumps 3 years ahead. 2010. The Gulf of Mexico swallows the horizon, black as midnight oil. A massive rig erupts, hurling a plume of fire skyward. The slick that follows spreads like ink across the water, choking marine life and coastal towns alike. A helicopter hovers over the burning wreckage, its rotors hacking through the thick, oily air. Below, fishermen haul up tar-black fish, their faces as bleak as the water they once fished. In that moment, the same corporate boardroom that brushed off the tobacco settlement watches the disaster unfold on a wall of monitors. Executives stare, eyes glazed, as the oil spreads, yet the contract on their desk sits untouched, the signature still warm. Why would the leaders of a $200 billion settlement turn a blind eye to a catastrophe that would cost billions more in cleanup, health impacts, and lost livelihoods? The answer isn't in the numbers. It's buried in the culture of denial that seeps through the upper echelons of power. A lone analyst, mid-30s, slides a folder across the polished table. Inside, the master settlement agreement, pages thick with clauses, penalties, and stipulations. He points to a line in red ink. Compliance required. The CEO smirks, runs his hand over the document, and whispers, "We'll get to it. Later." The camera cuts back to the Gulf, where a child in a coastal town watches the black tide creep up his front yard. His mother clutches a worn photograph of a family that once thrived on the sea. The oil slick devours the photo, the image disappearing beneath the sludge. A distant siren wails, a reminder that the world outside the boardroom isn't waiting. The juxtaposition is stark. A $206 billion legal pact, ignored, versus an environmental disaster that will forever scar a region. Both are crises of accountability, but only one will make the headlines. As the boardroom lights flicker once more, a new headline appears. Deepwater Horizon, the cost of corporate neglect. Yet the executives stay seated, the gold pen still poised, the ink ready to dry. The story we're about to unpack isn't just about money or oil. It's about the moment a decision was made to ignore the very mechanisms designed to prevent catastrophe. It's about the silent agreement that let a $206 billion settlement sit untouched while a different kind of disaster unfolded just miles away. What happens when the safeguards meant to protect the public are deliberately set aside? How does a single boardroom choice ripple outward, touching thousands of lives, ecosystems, and future legal battles? We'll follow the paper trail, the whistleblowers, and the legal fights that tried and failed to force accountability. The answers lie in the documents, the court filings, and the testimonies of those who saw the ink dry and the oil rise. Stay with me as we pull back the curtain on a corporate strategy that chose silence over settlement and discover the hidden cost of that choice. Disclaimer: I am not a lawyer. This narrative is for informational purposes only. A single lamp flickers in a cramped Austin apartment, throwing jagged shadows across a wall covered in a messy web of red string. Mark Vance, a former tobacco lobbyist, with a voice that's rough from decades of chain smoking, leans forward in his chair, his cigarette burning low between two yellowed fingers. They treated that Tobacco Master settlement like it was nothing more than a pothole on a highway, he rasps, the words catching in his throat. Just another bump in the road of doing business, but it wasn't. Source, Wikipedia. The camera creeps closer, zeroing in on a document stamped Confidential Tobacco Settlement Liabilities. One sentence pulses in angry red ink like a warning sign. No one will live to see the 5-year profit horizon. Vance's breath hitches as he stares at it, the weight of those words sinking in. That sentence? It was the match dropped on dry kindling. The Tobacco Master Settlement Agreement, inked in 1998, locked Big Tobacco into a $206 billion payment plan stretched over a quarter century. Source, attorneygeneral.gov. In exchange, the companies walked away with legal immunity and a bulletproof vest against state regulations. On the surface, a textbook win-win. States got their cash, the industry got its ceasefire. No muss, no fuss. But the devil's in the details, and the details stink like a stale ashtray. That settlement? It was a pay-up-and-forget-it deal, with every penny routed straight into state coffers instead of smoking cessation programs. States, desperate for every dime, looked the other way, while tobacco execs kept peddling their poison to teenagers. The result? A whole new crop of smokers lighting up while the promised health cash got lost in the shuffle of budget line items. Source, cage.gov. Jump ahead 20 years, and the corporate playbook reads like a bad sequel. The Deepwater Horizon spill, an ecological nightmare that erupted in 2010, ended with a settlement that, surprise, prioritized cold hard cash over actual accountability. The final number? Still classified like a state secret, but the headline screamed multi-billion-dollar payout, letting BP skate away without admitting full blame. Source, nag.org. Dig a little deeper, and the pattern's impossible to ignore. Both settlements read like a corporate bailout wrapped in a legal bow. In tobacco's case, that $206 billion was supposed to fund anti-smoking campaigns, but Congress never carved out a single dime for it. In the oil spill, billions changed hands, yet buried clauses kept future lawsuits at bay and dumped most cleanup costs on struggling local governments. Vance's red string collage tells the real story. Photos of smiling CEOs pinned next to court filings, internal memos scribbled with deny, delay, deflect in the margins. They turned settlements into accounting entries, he mutters, the smoke from his cigarette curling around the strings like a ghost. Money's their safety net, not justice. Source, attorneygeneral.gov. Here's where the cold math hits you in the gut. These settlements are engineered to vanish into the system without leaving a scratch on the guilty. Profit, payoff, repeat. They're stuck in a loop. The law? Just a stretchy rubber band. Snap it back into place and move on like nothing happened. Enter Maya Delgado, the journalist who's been living on caffeine and FOIA requests for months. She's the one person who's traced every dollar, every lobbyist call, every delayed grant back to Vance's same damn red strings. Money's the trail of breadcrumbs, she says, her pen hovering over a dog-eared notebook, voice steady as a judge's gavel. Follow it, and you find the whole rotten loaf. Source, nag.org. Delgado's notebook looks like a crime scene board, each sticky note a clue, each scribble a connection. She's matched every entry on Vance's wall to a state budget, a delayed health grant, a lobbyist's voicemail. The picture's crystal clear. These settlements aren't about fixing harm. They're about keeping the machine humming, no matter who gets crushed under its wheels. Then the bomb drops. Delgado uncovers a hidden clause in the oil spill settlement, one that lets BP dodge future environmental fines like a kid slipping past curfew. She cross-checks it with a near-identical clause in the tobacco deal, the kind that locks regulations in place for decades. Same damn playbook, she hisses, her finger tracing a red string that now bridges two industries. They're teaching each other how to get away with murder. The screen holds on that tangled web of strings, the camera lingering like an unanswered question. When a $206 billion settlement can be filed under miscellaneous expenses, what's left of accountability? Vance and Delgado lock eyes, no words needed. The answers woven into those strings, waiting for someone brave enough to yank them apart. As the AM radio's static hisses into silence, the camera doesn't cut away. It stays on that mess of red string, a living metaphor for a system that rewards destruction and buries the truth 6 feet under. The story's in its infancy, but the punchline's already written. Expose the cracks, or watch the next disaster get filed under business as usual. Mark emerges from the fog, and the dock lets out a groan under his boots. The ocean looks like a black mirror, its surface rippling as a distant cargo ship's horn echoes. He shoves a battered file along the rusted rail, handing it over to Lena. Both settlements were set up to stall payouts until the executives either retired or passed away, he says, his voice hoarse. It's not incompetence, it's design. Lena's eyes dart to the red dot blinking on Mark's chest, some hidden observer monitoring each of their steps. So you're saying the master settlement agreement was more than a simple tobacco legal fix? She asks. Mark nods and flips the file open. Inside, a stack of internal memos shows a clause that pushes payment triggers to the late 2020s, right when the original signatories would have left office. The same playbook shows up in the Deepwater Horizon settlement, payouts linked to the end of a 30-year remediation timetable, a schedule that neatly matches the retirement windows of top BP execs. Source. The file even references a 1998 Kentucky Attorney General report that called out deliberate timing mechanisms baked into the settlement language to protect corporate heads from immediate liability. Source. Lena leans forward, the wind snapping at her coat. If they knew the law couldn't reach them in time, why keep it hidden? Mark's voice cracks against the roar of the waves. Because the law works like a ticking clock. By the time it runs out, the folks who signed the deal are either gone or untouchable. A grainy photo flickers on the screen behind them. Executives at a 1999 press conference, grinning, oblivious that their signatures would turn into shackles delaying justice. The same picture shows up in a NAG briefing, which notes that settlement structures can be engineered to outlive the parties that created them. Source. Mark slides the file into Lena's hands. The cover-up isn't a coincidence. It's a coordinated playbook, woven into two of the biggest environmental and health settlements of our era. And now we've got the proof. The dock lights flicker, and the red dot on Mark's chest steadies. Someone's watching. Yet the truth finally emerges. The lighter clicks, once, then twice, before the wind blows it out. Mark fixes his gaze on the Gulf, the sea that swallowed truth for years. And guess what? The tobacco titans wrote a $206 billion check, cleared it, and simply moved on. No jail time, no apologies, just a new yacht in the harbor. The drone pulls away, and there it sits. They ignored us, etched into stone like a curse. Because that's exactly what it was. A death sentence for thousands, signed, sealed, and left to rot. Now BP pulled the same stunt. They shelled billions in fines while the Gulf kept bleeding. The executives, gone retired. The planet, still footing the bill. The pattern's crystal clear. Profit first, consequences never. Lena's on point. What's the truth if nobody looks? The courtrooms sit silent. The boardrooms? Not so quiet, and every whistleblower left unheard. It's another spark igniting in the dark. They ignored us. Will we ignore them? The settlements were handed over. The executives called it quits. The planet bore the cost. Will we?